And gentlemen, this is Conversations with Rob, another episode. Yesterday we did some talks on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. Now we're doing another talk. And this is about a subject that I'm very passionate about, and I know this person is also, about Medicare for all and healthcare in general. This is Scott Desnoyers. Did I say that right? I know we went through this before the
Close
interview.
enough. It's Scott Desnoyers. All the S's are silent. Everybody gets that one wrong.
All right.
I've had somebody confuse the Y with a G and call it Desnoyers. So Desnoyers is better than that.
All right, Scott. Well, anyway, Scott's from Saratoga County, New York. And he's got a special story that if you've listened to Jordan Sheridan, which I know a lot of the viewers like him, and Status Quo, and those type of programs, you may have heard his son's story and him telling that story about Daniel. But I want him to tell it first. But Scott, hey, thanks so much for coming on, and I really appreciate you taking so much time out of your day to coordinate this and come on the program.
No, thank you for having me on. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, this is definitely something that's very important to me. I never thought I would be this involved with this again. Back in 2015, 2016, I got involved with Bernie and like a lot of his supporters. I got burned out pretty quick after we saw what happened. So coming around this beginning of this cycle when Bernie said he was running, I was kind of excited, but I knew I wasn't going to phone bank. I knew I wasn't going to be trying to get other people involved. I pretty much was already burned out. Right. Up until this happened. Back in March, my oldest son, Daniel, moved in with me. And he had some problems with his domestic life, and he had an order of protections put against him. He couldn't communicate with his girlfriend, which, you know, this actually has a big part of everything that happened. 3 weeks after he moves in with me, he comes in the door really upset, and he's like, "Pops, I went to get my medicine refilled today, and they told me my insurance had been canceled, and it's going to cost me $250. I was like, "Daniel, don't worry about it. You've got a therapist meeting in like 2 weeks. You know, if we can't come up with the money by then, sure she'll be able to come up with something." Well, we also told him what you need to do is first thing on Monday morning, you need to call Fidelis and find out why you were canceled. I think he waited 3 or 4 days. He didn't exactly call like he should have. You know, he doesn't realize how much of a mistake that was. He called after April 1st, and they explained to him that he had missed a $20 payment. He made his $20 payment on the phone that day, and they said that his services would be resumed May 1st and the next billing cycle. April 9th, I saw his suicide note posted on Facebook seconds after he posted it. He showed that he had super glued his seatbelt shut and decided that this world wasn't meant for him, and that he was going to decide death by drowning. And he said farewell to his 2 children, Daniel and Hazel. After seeing the note, I screamed out to my wife because it was just seconds after he posted it that I saw the Facebook post. And it showed a picture of his truck overlooking the water. And I live 5 minutes from Saratoga Lake. So I jumped in my car, hoping to get to the water to save him and die. It was actually at the Mohawk River, so there wasn't a chance I could have saved him even if I could have gotten there in time. Anyway, I reached out because this is just wrong. It was a $20 payment. And the insurance knew. They knew that stopping antipsychotic like this has a known side effect of suicidal tendencies. This was a withdrawal symptom that they knew about, that they instigated because they didn't receive his $20 that month. I reached out to my 35 followers, and my tweet went viral. Within a couple of days, I had like 37,000 retweets, and Roe Canna had gotten a hold of me, which is Bernie's co-chair, I'm sure many are aware, and said that he was going to address the House of Representatives with Daniel's story. I made a promise to Daniel and his siblings at his funeral that I would look our lawmakers in the eye so they could see the consequences of their decisions. Roe has been awesome. but that wasn't me yet. I'm going to continue fighting. I've actually got a protest rally to a lobbyist who wrote an op-ed letter in to the Times Union defending Fidelis's decision. And he's going to be his keynote speaker at this conference. I've paired up with New York Health Campaign for a protest picket. And we've got a lot more than they've ever thought were coming. And I'm hoping to get a lot more people because we need to make sure that they know this is not acceptable. I'll give you more information on the ticket if you want.
Yeah, please do that. But let's just talk about that. So first of all, I haven't heard of Fidelis. So with the insurance company, so it was just $20 a payment that they needed to extend the service, which is disgraceful. $20 is $20. I know it's money and stuff, and they're a for-profit company, but why didn't they try? Did they try to call Daniel? Did they try to call anybody to try to say, hey, you got $20, you gotta pay this?
Well, that's just it. That's what I was saying at the beginning, that he was in a domestic fight with his girlfriend. His mail went there. He's not allowed to contact her.
True.
So that's why he found out when he went to get his medication refilled that it had been canceled because he couldn't contact his girlfriend. Now, the domestic dispute also ended up getting charges filed against him. Obviously, there was an order of protection against him. He lost his job, which means he lost his phone. So he wasn't getting his text messages. And that's where I got into it with this lobbyist for Fidelis Care that wrote it to the Times Union. His whole point is that Fidelis works hard, was his comment, to make sure that people understand how important it is that they pay their premiums. Yes. Yes. So if you don't pay your premium, you cut off your service and your son can die. I get it. Yeah. Right. And he actually called my son's name out and said that his heart goes out to my family after he says how important it is that people pay their premiums. Yeah. It seems a little backwards to me.
Well, they don't have any compassion. It's, as Bernie said, and I'm sure you've said, and other people that are in the fight, it's just for profit. They're looking for it doesn't matter if it's $1, $20, or $300. If they don't get that, they're just going to basically screw whoever it is, and that's the way they feel about it.
Well, this essential plan is actually part of the ACA. He bought his this package through New York State plan, which is part of the ACA. And this is managed care of Medicaid, so people who were already struggling to get health care to begin with. Now, mind you, this algorithm, when they wrote it, and they knew there'd be people having to make a $20 payment. They knew there'd be a certain percentage of people that would miss this payment that would fall off of service. They knew the certain percentage of those people that lost services, there would be a fatality as a result of it. They implemented this anyway, knowing this would be the result. Because they didn't get their $20, Danny can die, and then they could have the lobbyists write in and say, well, we try to work really hard to make sure you get your letter from your phone call. Yeah. So, there's something seriously wrong with America when they know $20 is going to cost somebody their life, and they say, we want it anyway.
So let's go more into that. Now, you said you supported Bernie Sanders in 2016, and now you're supporting him again. I know you talked to Ro Khanna, he's one of the co-chairs. Have you spoke to anybody in the Senator's staff besides, Ro Khanna, as far as like trying to get the senator to talk to you, or maybe speak at one of his rallies, something to that effect?
Well, according to what I heard through one of his campaign people, is when he starts campaigning here in New York, he plans on bringing me on stage with him. Yeah, there hasn't been much discussion about that since then, but I'm talking on a regular basis through emails and through direct messages on Twitter with Ro on a regular basis. And I've also been in a meeting with Kirsten Gillibrand's Albany office. Also, he's trying to get me onto the House floor myself. Owen said he's going to try to work. They've got to get, obviously, a panel together where they're addressing the House. for certain issues regarding Medicare for all. And I wanted to go to the Senate, but right now the Democrats don't own the Senate. Yeah. So, I mean, the House of Representatives will work fine, but as long as it's me talking to our lawmakers, that's the promise I made for my son, and that's the promise I need to keep.
Right. Well, that's great because you do have that story. It's an unfortunate story, but we do need people like you to tell this story because maybe it'll get into enough people's heads. I mean, we've seen, I was watching the Jimmy Dore show for a fact, and they had Fox and Friends did a poll about Bernie Sanders' health care plan. It was a Twitter poll, and 74% of the people said they agreed with the plan. And that's Fox and Friends. That's not MSNBC or some kind of liberal think tank. That's Fox and Friends. So if you can get 74% of the Republicans, then you're in pretty damn good shape.
I mean, we've been so inundated by mass media, it's insane. I mean, in the 1970s, there was an insurance group that put together a study group and found that by saying the term government-controlled healthcare or government-run healthcare leaves a bad taste in our mouth. Before that, they never used that term. That's the only term you hear now. You don't hear single-payer. You don't hear, before that, they used Canadian-type healthcare system instead of government-run healthcare system. But we hear private insurance, which sounds nice and warm and cuddly, rather than what it really is corporate-controlled healthcare system, which we have now.
Well, you're absolutely right, and we'll move on to the next question. But to finish up the thought about that is we've seen, and Bernie said this, that we've seen all these countries, Canada, every country in Europe has universal health care. We're supposed to be the greatest country on earth, and we have people such as Daniel that they killed him. Basically, that's what they did. And now it's not just him. They've killed many, many people all over the country in years upon years, and not just this year, but years before that. So it's really sad. I don't know how we can call the country great if we have people dying for lack of health care. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you personally, I've read thousands and thousands of stories since I started my activation. I've only been doing this for 7 months. I can't picture somebody like Amy Villela, how many stories she's read, right. Or Rebecca Wood, which, right. By the way, Rebecca will be joining us at my rally in Albany this on the 21st this month. That's a big, huge perk for us. We could use a nice, strong person like her. But yeah, I've read this story about a lady. She gave a genetic disease to her daughter, and her daughter Abby died at the age of 2 because she couldn't get her daughter treated because of a pre-existing condition. This girl is thinking every day, I gave my daughter this disease, I treated myself, and couldn't treat her. How horrible is that? For a parent to go through that sort of guilt and pain. I think she's got like 30 followers on Twitter. I don't even know her real name. I think it's Somebody Loves Us is her handle on Twitter. Nobody thinks about poor little Abby.
No, I agree. It's really sad that this keeps going on in our country. And I know you. So to move on to the next question, I know you supported Bernie in 2016. We've seen Elizabeth Warren now come out with her own Medicare for All plan, which is not really my cup of tea. I think that she says she's going to get money for this through immigration reform, cutting defense spending, taxing the millionaires. I want to know how she's going to get all that stuff through Congress, but that's just my opinion on her. But my question for you, Scott, is why Bernie again instead of Elizabeth Warren, who the mainstream media is praising Elizabeth Warren like she's God. She's running around the country. She's tied in the polls. She's ahead in this state and that state. We all know that that's not true, and Bernie is doing way better than they're really saying. But why not Warren, Scott?
Well, first off, let's say there's some history with Bernie. I think something about 40 years he's been saying this. Elizabeth Warren has just jumped on this year with healthcare, with Medicare for All. She's paid lip service, but when it was really important in 2016, I'm pretty sure she went with "It's never ever going to happen, girl." Yeah. So She did. Bernie was still saying that we're going to get Medicare for all, and she supported the one who said it's never going to happen.
Right.
Bernie cares about us. Bernie shared Danny's story. I haven't seen Elizabeth Warren share it. I went and asked everybody that co-signed Bernie's bill to share his story, which is why I've been in contact with Kamala Harris, who also shared Danny's story. I'm not sure if you heard that portion of it. Yeah, she shared his story 3 weeks before she released her plan that supports his killers. I was kind of upset with Senator Harris over that. I'm pretty sure I damaged her numbers the same time Tulsi Gabbard attacked her.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm going to go with somebody who's consistent. I want somebody who I can believe and I trust is for us and not for the corporate world that will change her mind depending upon what is politically viable for her.
Right. So, Scott, I'm originally from Rhode Island, and Bernie did win the state of Rhode Island in 2016, which was big because Hillary had the governor, Hillary had all the senators in Rhode Island, and Bernie won Rhode Island pretty big. Now I'm in Florida right now, and I do see a lot of, which I was surprised of, quite a few Bernie bumper stickers. I even seen a couple of houses with some Bernie yard signs. What is going on in New York where you are as far as Bernie mania? Is Bernie mania kicking up in New York? We know what happened in 16, Scott, where they really screwed a lot of voters in New York that were independents, that they had to, I know they have to change over to be a Democrat in New York, and there was all sorts of things that they just switched it back that you have to be a Democrat by February 14th now, but they had it for this past October, excuse me. So there's all kinds of shenanigans going on in New York. What's going on? What do you see as far as people you talk to about Bernie in New York?
I mean, of course, I keep my circle tight, though all of my friends are all tight Bernie supporters. So,
right.
Of course, those people are going just as crazy as we are. Unfortunately, though, I live in dairy country, which I love it out here. However, it's very urban, and I've got a lot of Trump supporters. Just the other day, I was canvassing, and I had somebody had or feelings Trump 2020 on his shirt, and I had my 11-year-old granddaughter with me while we were canvassing. She was not too pleased with Mr. Trump's shirt. Every time we drive by this gentleman's house, she's like, "That's the guy with the shirt, right, Papa?" So, yeah, we got a lot of Trump supporters out here in this area, but we're working hard. I think some of my neighbors, I'm going to obviously bang on their doors some more. I'm going to let them know what's going on, and we're going to get them out. We're going to get them voting.
Well, so let me ask you this. I have a neighbor that's a big Trump supporter, and he'll vote for Trump, but he does respect Bernie. I see a lot, because Bernie says what he means and he means what he says. This guy doesn't believe in anything Bernie stands for, but we looked at 2016 when I was talking to this guy. He said, Bernie, I might not agree with him, but at least he says what he means. Do you see any of those people as far as living in a Republican area that say, hey, I don't like Bernie, but I respect him, and maybe I think a couple of the things that he does stand up for are right, but maybe I'm not going to vote for him, or maybe you can even turn him around?
I think the biggest problem we have with them is the misinformation that's out there. They're convinced that they're going to pay a ton of money for people who aren't working.
Right.
As if, and I understand their fears. When I was younger, much younger, I was conservative, and I grew up Southern Baptist, and you can imagine how conservative that sort of family can be. So I understand what they're thinking. I understand what they're feeling. We have to make them understand that this is a lot of misinformation, that other countries, every other country does better than us. They have a hard time understanding that we're doing worse than another country. How can you say we're not the greatest country? We have the best profiting medical system, but I wouldn't say the best medical care, being that we rank at 37th place according to statistics. 36 countries have a more efficient healthcare system than we do. That's not the best healthcare system in the world.
Right.
I believe it's something like we are in 5th place of child mortality, though. There's 4 other countries that are not as good as we are killing our babies. So, yeah, we have a lot of work to do in our healthcare system.
Are you worried, Scott, if the Democratic Party screws Bernie again out of the nomination, which I'm sure they're trying to do, especially with Blutenberg? They're trying to get him in. They talk about Deval Patrick now. Hillary's going to say she can't just go away. She's going to say she wants to she might jump in or stuff like this. So, I mean, if we're worried, well, I think that's good, because you let all the establishment guys fight for their votes. Let Deval Patrick, Blutenberg, Biden, Hillary come back in. They're all going to steal votes away from each other. They're not going to get the Bernie voters, because those people hate that group of characters. So that's fine with me. They can all jump back in. But are you worried that they try to bring the super delegates in on the second ballot again? They screw Bernie. We put up Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, whoever it may be, Kamala Harris, and Trump just wipes the floor with them again and wins them. And it's like a mandate, because he wins again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. If they do the same thing again they did in 2016, which you're right, they're very likely going to try. Mm-hmm. If they do it again, whoever they put in place, if we're not saying we want them, we're not going to say we want them more than Trump later on. His supporters are going to show up more than people that feel they got burned. Right. It's just true. I mean, everything we can't stand about Trump, his supporters love about him. We can scream and yell all we want until we're red in the face about how horrible he is, but his supporters are loving it. So what? Right. So we're losing a battle there. We got to get the people with a heart to get on. And there are some Trump supporters that have that, but they're afraid. And they have the right to be afraid with the way they've been treated. We all have a right to be afraid of the way we've been treated by our politicians.
Two more questions, Scott. First of all, with the with the election coming up, we hear obviously impeachment started today. They're doing all the hearings and stuff. My take on that, and that's why I want to know what your take on it is. My take is that you put the impeachment on there. This is going to get played pretty much till the election, and it's just ramping up the Trump supporters. They love this. Trump can go around the country to every state in the country and say, hey, look what they did with Russia. Nothing came out of it. Now we got Ukraine. Nothing's going to come out of it. And if he gets impeached in the House, it's going to go right to the Senate, Scott, and they're not going to do a damn thing. He's not going to get impeached. And it's just more vindication for Trump. So my thing is that the Democratic Party is putting themselves in a box again to lose. And Bernie has to watch this box right now, because he cannot get in this impeachment box. If he gets too much in this box, if he does win the nomination, it could hurt him in the general election. I think that impeachment is a bad thing. Let's beat him on the issues like Bernie's trying to do. And that's not, he is a crook. But so is Hillary Clinton. So is Joe Biden. So is Barack Obama. They are all crooks. The only guys that aren't crooks is somebody like Bernie Sanders, somebody like Ro Khanna, somebody like AOC. There's very few non-crooks that are in the Congress.
Don't forget my girl Nina.
Nina Turner, of course, yes. She's amazing too, and she can really. I hope that they put her as a VP or chief of staff. If he wins the White House, she has to have some kind of big part in the administration.
I would love her as VP.
Right. And Tulsi Gabbard as Secretary of Defense, and then
I think we're on the same page there. We can make Bernie's cabinet for her.
Right, I agree. So what do you think about this impeachment stuff, as I just stated to you, Scott?
Yeah, I agree. The impeachment, they're not going to, first off, if they do impeach, which would be easy enough to get through the House, the Senate, you're right, is not going to remove them. They're just not. And it's just going to, and if you think Trump isn't going to turn around and throw some other thing out there just to turn everybody's heads again, he's done it every single time. He will continue to do it. He's got to, whether it's, something over in the Middle East or whether it's something down in Mexico, he's going to do something to just spin everybody's heads around. And he's been doing it this entire past 3 years. He's going to continue to do it. The impeachment is going nowhere. You're right. It's going to be red versus blue, and that's what the blue wants. They don't want all of us saying, hey, let's get together. They want, oh no, let's go against the red. Yeah. It's not about unity, it's about fighting against Trump. Right. Because Biden can fight Trump in the elite area. He can't do it with the people. He can't come to the people and get us together unless he's got a bigger crook to fight against.
Well, and we go with this, and me and you are both supporters of Senator Sanders. Bernie's been standing up, as you stated earlier in the interview, Bernie's been standing up for the same issues for the past 40 years. Joe Biden stood up for the crime bill. Joe Biden's not standing up for Medicare for all. Joe Biden's got a weak proposal on global warming and climate change. He's a flip-flopper. Bernie's the guy that's the real deal. He's the original, the OG. He's been standing with the same issues, fighting for the same issues, for the same thing. Trump can't go against somebody like that because Bernie can say, I've been saying the same thing for 40 years. We got the tapes. We got the paperwork that says this. And these other guys, they're flip-floppers. They could have them saying, they're for the crime bill, and then 10 seconds later, they're not. So that's what happened with Hillary Clinton. She's for the TPP, now she was against it. She's for this, and then she's against it. So you can't beat Trump with these type of people. Bernie's the only person that has got the cojones and has the issues on his side that the people want, and that's the only person that I believe can beat Trump.
You know what? When I first heard about Bernie, it was through Nina, and I heard her expressing how he's been fighting the same issues for so long. Nina spoke from the heart. When I listened to Bernie, you hear him. He spoke about stuff that was unpopular. He knew he was going to take heat. Back in the 70s, anybody that stood up for LGBTQ, really? That wasn't even spoke about until past through the 90s. We're just barely able to speak about it to this day, sadly. Right. You know, but Bernie was fighting for them in the 70s. Right. You know, Bernie is right. Bernie's the original. He's been fighting for the people, not the establishment. It's why he's not a Democrat that everybody loves pointing out, as if that's a bad thing.
No corporate money, $18 as far as the donation max the past couple months. He's got the most money for any Democrat in the race, but the establishment is so fixated because they don't want any of his policies to come true. They're going to bash him. They'll raise Elizabeth Warren because they know that they can corrupt her. She's just another Barack Obama that's a woman, and that's what they'll try to do if she ever got in. But Scott, my last thing is, first, I want you to talk more about the protest that you're going to be doing on the 21st, what that's about. Give the viewers more information about that, please.
Yeah, so basically what happened was I paired up with New York Campaign Health, which is basically Medicare for all New Yorkers. You know, okay. There's different groups in Washington and Colorado that all have different campaigns similar going on. I testified in Rochester. There's a very strong testimony that the video has gotten a lot of attention to help me fight for Medicare for all. Well, early on, I had written an op-ed into my local newspaper, Times Union, and they ran the story. Shortly after, a man named Eric Windsor, which is a lobbyist for Fidelis Care, wrote in an opposition letter explaining how Fidelis Care works really hard to make sure its customers are contacted and understand the importance of making their premiums. He is to be the keynote speaker at a conference in Albany, and me and Rebecca Wood, New York Health Campaign, and hopefully a couple of hundred other people are going to be picketing right outside of their conference to let them know it's not okay. Yeah. Furthermore, let me check the name. There's another group that's with them. I think it's United Health. I better double check that name. But they ran an algorithm that was showing that it would give less care to people of color than a healthier white person. And they ran this algorithm on purpose, and they're being investigated for it. And they're also going to be at this conference for, this conference also is fighting single payer, by the way. That's not it. So, yeah, it's going to be November 21st. The picket line is going to be from noon to 1. We're also going to have some sort of picnic. I'm not sure what the food is. It may not be the greatest, but sure, it won't be the worst, and it'll be free. Just show up. December 21st, 55 Eagle Street, Albany, New York. And for anybody also that wants to follow me, Scott Desno on Twitter, or if you could spell out my name, Desnoyers, Scott Denoyer.
Well, Scott, I hope, first of all, we're definitely going to do this again, especially when you start really ramping up in New York with the Bernie campaign, because that's going to be coming up fairly soon. He should really be hitting on that trail in New York. I know he was just there for that big rally about a week and a half back, which was insane. I don't know if you got to go to that, but it was
No, that's great. I happened to be in Portland, Oregon at a conference with Healthcare Now, testifying there with them on the other coast. So it's the first time I've ever been on the other coast, and it just so happens to be Bernie's at 3.5 hours from my house, because I would have loved to have been there. But we all have to do our part where we have to be.
Well, like I said, I hope we can do this again, and I really enjoyed the information that you gave, and I'm sure the viewers will, and I hope they follow you on Twitter and also subscribe to the channel here and give this a like and try to spread the word, because Scott's got the message. He has the story of what really went on and how our healthcare system is just corrupt and how it's really hurt and killed many people in this country, made them go bankrupt or even killed them, which is a disgrace, and we need to solve this problem.
Make sure you tag me on Twitter with this link so I can share it for us.
I will, Scott. Hey, Scott, thanks so much, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later, Rob.